Hi everyone, Steven and Stjepan here. Welcome to Hanging Pawns. Steven is a patron in the Bobby Fischer tier, and today we played our first training game. First, I'd like to let Steven introduce himself. Go on, Steven.
Hello, my name's Stephen. I'm from Northern Ireland and I've been playing chess for about a year now. A local club started up about a year ago, so I joined, and ever since I've been obsessed with chess. Similar sort of story to everyone else. And obviously just want to improve, and I thought no better way than whenever I seen Stepan was offering the tiers, so I didn't want to miss that opportunity, and I just hope to improve over the next few months.
Okay, so Steven is Steven. What's your FIDE rating at the moment?
I don't have official rating.
Yeah, I'm sorry, ECF.
Yeah, so it's probably around. It's quite low, 1,000, 1,100, something like that, or even just 1,000 really.
Okay. Objectively, I think it should be higher, but Steven didn't have that much chance to play tournament chess, so I think it should go up significantly. We've had our second lesson today, and mostly we've been focusing on positional play. But from now on, we are going to start doing tactical exercises as well. Okay, so for our schedule, we have one tournament game each month, and we chose the game in 60 format because I think game in 90 plus 30 seconds would just be too long. And do you think this was enough time for the first game?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So before the game, when we arranged the game, I asked Steven which opening would he like to play, and his main against e5 is the Italian. So I played black in the Italian, which I've never done before, which actually happened in the game against John as well. I played against the Scotch with the black pieces, and yeah, what did you do to prepare?
Yeah, I kind of went over lines in Stockfish, and I got a book winning with the slow Italian. So I've sort of been going through that as well. But yeah, just a bit of practice.
Okay, did you prepare for both knight f6 and bishop c5 on move 3?
If knight f6, I was going to go d3 anyway to try and transpose into the pianissimo. So I wouldn't have went for any of the knight g5 or anything like that.
Okay. Okay, so if I'd played knight f6, you wouldn't have played knight g5, right? Okay, so calmer games. I didn't, this time, after John beat me, you can see that game from last week, I decided to prepare seriously for all of these training games. And I've never really played against the Italians, so I was only looking at lines with a6, bishop a7. Did you look at that for black?
Sorry, what was that? Didn't catch that.
Okay, let's go through the game and I'll talk about it. So this is the position that we agreed to play, bishop c4 for white, and then I decided to play bishop c5. You played c3, which is the classical Giuoco Piano, which I think is the best variation. That's what I played. I played knight f6. You played d3, which is the best move. I played d6, and this is all theory thus far. Here you castled. Do you think that if you... do you think that after castles, black had a chance to play knight a5 to get the bishop?
I didn't think so. I could play a3 and reverse my bishop into a2.
Well, if I play knight a5 here, then if you play bishop b3, I'm going to take it. So you have to play queen a4 check, and... I'm not sure what happens, but I think I need to return my knight to c6. Because then if I defend with the bishop, you can just take the knight.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I castled, which I think is the best move. You played bishop b3, which is correct, because now knight a5 actually works. And you don't want to lose your bishop. And then I played a6, which is a line I faced before, and a line I like for black. Did you know this line?
Not really. I've sort of seen similar before in the club games, but yeah, nothing in depth.
Okay, but the point is that I basically want to retreat my bishop to a7 so that when d4 comes, which should come inevitably in these variations, my bishop doesn't have to lose the tempo moving, and then I have multiple options. And here you played a3. Could you explain the move?
Yeah, I was a little bit worried of a person on that side, so I just wanted a bit of space to reverse my bishop. And I didn't want really to enable any sort of queenside mobility. I was also considering a3 as well. Well, h3, a3, knight b to d2, rook f to e1. For all the moves I was considering in that position. But ultimately just went for a3 to try and limit sort of any great movement on that side.
Okay, well, I have to say that I've been playing the Italian with white pieces for 3 years now, ever since I've started. A3, from a human perspective, doesn't make sense because you play c3 for two reasons. One of them is to push d4, and the second one is to be able to retreat the bishop to c2. Because ultimately, as happened in the game later on, you are going to have problems with the e4 pawn. And the c2 bishop is a perfect defender for that. And if you plan to push d4, which is a normal plan, that's why you play c3, then bishop on c2 is an extremely useful piece. And if you play c3, do you know what the main downside of the move is?
No, I'm not sure.
Okay, so once you play c3, your knight cannot come to c3.
Yeah, well,
and the knight is much worse on d2, and this is why white has a plan knight d2, knight f1, knight g3. Obviously, the knight could be much better, let's say, on d5. So if you can play knight c3 and knight d5, then the knight is probably better. But once you already play c3, then you play it for two reasons: to play bishop c2, support e4, and to play d4. So once the center opens up, you have a very dangerous attacking piece staring at h7. So a3 should be a waste of time. And I didn't really like the move. And in this position, I decided to play bishop a7. It is a slow move, but I think that I could afford it because you played a3. And now we went knight bd2. Did you want the normal plan like knight f1, knight g3?
Yeah, I also considered h3 here. And then you immediately moved bishop c4, which made me wish I played h3.
I played knight e7 here.
Oh yeah, sorry, later on I did, but yeah, so consider h3 in this.
Yeah, I play the Italian with white pieces. I never play h3, and sometimes I will play it after bishop g4, but I don't really mind the light squared bishop coming to g4 because I usually want my knight from g3 to come to f5, and then in any situation where your bishop decides to trade itself off, I'm going to be slightly better. And another thing is, what I played here, I played knight e7. Black also has a plan of knight g6 and then knight f4. And then once you play the move h3, it's much harder to evict the knight, because now if you play the move g3, trying to remove the knight, then knight takes h3 is check. And I actually have a target to attack. This is why I don't play h3 with the white pieces. I'm not saying it's a bad move or anything, but I think it just provokes a weakness. Rook e1, were you concerned at all about knight g4 here?
A little bit, but yeah, I kind of just wanted to continue with my plan of developing the knight to f1 to g3. I didn't think there was anything too difficult.
Okay, what about knight g4? What do you play after knight g4?
Knight g4.
I'm basically using the weakness of your last move, undefending f2.
Yeah. Potentially pushing d4 here at this point. I don't know if that would work. D4.
Okay, let's look at that. I'm sorry, my laptop is really slow, so the pieces are going to move slowly. Okay, d4. And then what do you expect black to play?
E takes d.
E takes d. Now c takes d. Yeah, this could probably be a solution. I was also looking at rook e2, but I think this is enough. So now we can see that your bishop on c2 would be a great piece.
Yeah.
Defending the e4 pawn. That's basically the point. You want your bishop on c2 when this happens. Okay, but after rook e1, I didn't want to go for knight g4 because I saw both d4 and rook e2 and couldn't see the purpose of my knight on g4, so I played knight g6. And now if you don't move your knight, I might play knight f4. So you played knight f1, which is the correct plan, and I went for bishop g4. What do you think the purpose of bishop g4 was?
To potentially try and invoke the weakness of h3.
Yeah, that's the only thing, and this is what I hate about the Italian, about this variation of Giuoco Pianissimo with the white pieces. So basically, once I play h3, knight f4 becomes a much more dangerous move, and obviously, if you don't react, then I'm going to play knight h4, and you really are going to have a hard time. You're probably going to have to return your knight back to d2, and then I'm not sure what happens, but I think black should be better. And after h3, I could have played bishop e6. Did you consider that?
No, I didn't consider it.
Okay, so I was looking at all three options, basically. I was looking at bishop e6 and bishop d7 and bishop c8, because in some variations I wanted to play b5, bishop b7. And I was concerned, actually very concerned, about you playing d4 at some point, because I couldn't see how I can sustain my center after that. I basically, bishop g4 is a provocative move, and it doesn't do much to stop d4. So after I returned my bishop, did you consider d4 at all?
No, because I was still focusing on developing my knight to g3 and just getting that planned on first, and then I was going to, once the pieces were in place, and I was sort of looking to develop the knights to f5 if I could, try and get a hold. So that's kind of what ended up happening. Backed up f5 with two knights, but didn't really work out.
It didn't really work out. Yeah, my advice would be in this variation, if you can play d4, play d4. Because after that, all of the plans change, and black can obviously take or not take. In this position, it's much harder for me not to take d4. Let's say you play it. And let's say I play, I don't know, a defensive move, such as rook e8. Then you can take, and after I take with my knight, you can take. I obviously have to take with the pawn. And now, very often, there are plans with f4, opening up the position. And my f7 pawn is weak if your bishop is on b3, which is unusual, but much more commonly it's going to be on c2. And then once, let's say the bishop is on c2, you play f4, I basically have to take. Otherwise, I think your position is going to be overwhelming. So if I take, you have a5. If I don't take, you can take. And then once I recapture with the rook, you can play the move bishop f4. And then you have a lot of pressure on my position. So I think that opening up the position would favor you a lot here, and sometimes in these lines, even though you have a normal plan of knight g3, knight f5, you have to play aggressively if you can, and you have to try to seize the initiative. So after bishop d7, I think that you should have gone for d4. Did you consider that at all?
Sort of, but I was afraid of that a7 bishop just slicing across, and I wasn't sure of some of the complications.
But the bishop is strong anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, so you went for knight g3, which is a normal move. Still, I think you should have used the chance to play d4. And now, in anticipation of d4, I played the move c6, and the plan is basically to be able to play queen c7 or queen b6 if I want to. Queen c7 more commonly, because then I'm supporting my e5 pawn, and I'm always going to have something to recapture with without having to play rook e8. Another thing that I was worried about is if I play rook e8 in lines after d4, then you have knight g5, and my f7 pawn is really weak. And then obviously I don't have bishop e6 because you can take twice. So I wanted to reinforce my center, and I figured if you don't do something aggressive, then I'm probably going to play d5 myself, and I'm going to open up the center, and then I'll probably have the initiative. Okay, so after c6, you played bishop e3, which, considering the position, I don't really see being a good move. I couldn't decide what to do. I'm not sure how much time I spent, but after bishop e3, I decided to take after a while. What did you think I was going to do?
Yeah, I thought you were probably going to take. I was hoping you were going to take. But yeah, just because I sort of looking at the position, what pieces need still to be developed, and what was your strongest piece. So I thought my piece that hadn't been developed for a piece that was very strong on your side that you'd moved a few times. So I thought that was a good plan.
Yeah, well, that's normal for both sides. Black sometimes plays bishop e6, white can play bishop e3. And one thing I don't really agree with is after I took the bishop, which I think was the best move, you recaptured with the rook. Now, obviously, we're not using the engine. I'm not sure why I have the engine analysis bar on the right side of the board. I didn't turn it on. But why didn't you take with the f pawn?
Yeah, to be honest, it was sort of those cases of sort of doubting myself. I knew the rook would be kind of awkward on e3, but just the pawn structure, and we've talked a lot about pawn structures recently. I just didn't want to double the pawns.
Okay,
but, yeah.
so the biggest upside of the move bishop e3 or bishop e6 for either side in these positions, when the bishops or the opposite player's bishops are on the long diagonal, once you play this move, you want to capture with the pawn, because after you capture, I don't have the f4 square anymore. That's the only upside. You don't really care about the structure because this pawn structure is actually favorable for you. You now have a free hand to play d4, and you are basically going to overwhelm my center. And it's not really clear what my knight is doing on g6 now. So that's why I almost didn't take, but I didn't know what to do. If I hadn't taken, so in this position after bishop e3, my other move was bishop b6. That's the only other move I looked at because I want to be able to recapture with my queen. If I allow bishop takes a7, rook takes a7, then my rook is out of the game. But after I take with the bishop and you take with the pawn, I might actually be in trouble. Could you think of a move for black here? I'm sorry. So here, white is going to play d4 on his next move because the situation is perfect. Your g3 knight is a loose piece, so you will need to be careful about the g3 knight, but I don't see a way to attack it that time anytime soon. One clear advantage you have here is that you can play knight f5, and then even if I take and you recapture with the e4 pawn, then you can still play e3, e4 later on. And if you can imagine your pawn on f5, your pawn on e4, your pawn on d3, this is completely crushing for white. And if I don't take, then your knight is on f5, which is a strategic victory for white in the Italian. But I had a plan, and this is actually why I took the bishop. If this had happened, which I thought was equal or slightly better for you, I would have played d5 immediately, just not to allow you to expand at all. And then if you don't take, I'm going to take, and you're going to have doubled pawns in the center, which are going to start looking really ugly. And if you take, I'm just going to recapture and have a strong center, play the move e4 later on. So that's the kind of thing I was talking about for white. Both sides really need to seize the initiative when they have the chance to. Otherwise, in this position, if I don't play d5, I mean, let's say I play a stupid move, I don't know, b5, and then you play d4. I mean, this is now getting really hard to play, and this is sort of thematic that one side or the other is going to have a huge space advantage, and then a kingside attack is going to start, which is going to be really hard to meet. Now, the engine, I'm not sure what it's going to say, but I think he basically thinks it's all equal, but it's not equal. From here on, it's really much easier to play with the white pieces. But after you took with the rook, I have to say I thought the game was winning for black from a strategic standpoint, because now I can immediately play knight f4, and I mean, you're never going to evict my knight, especially in conjunction with h3. I have thematic sacrifices on h3 already. I can play bishop h3, pawn h3, knight h3 check. It pays off to give that piece up, especially because I then have knight g4 evicting your rook, double attacking the f2 pawn. My queen can come into the game, and it just becomes really dangerous because all of a sudden you have tremendous pressure on your king side without that being necessary at all. What did you think here?
Yeah, I didn't like the position of my rook, to be honest. I preferred your position at this point.
Yeah, and I think that the only difference is, had you taken with a pawn, it would have been a completely different game. I would have played d5, opened up the center, and it would have been a semi-open center in which both sides have chances. In fact, your b3 bishop is much better than my d7 bishop. The knights are equal, obviously. Your rook is on e1, which is great. I still didn't develop my rook, so we would basically have two better pieces in an open position. So yeah, but here you blundered. You played the move knight h4, and now I think that's. I mean, it's definitely over, but it's just a matter of technique. I wasn't sure. I ended up playing knight takes e4. Do you know which other move I was looking at? Could you guess?
Bishop takes h3. No.
Well, bishop takes h3 could work, but I don't really have to sacrifice a piece. I was looking at the move knight g4. And after knight g4, I'm attacking your knight, I'm attacking your rook, so I'm going to basically win something if you don't take my knight. And then once you capture my knight, I was going to recapture with the queen. And it's going to be really hard to defend. If you defend the g4 pawn, then obviously I'm going to take the knight. So you would be losing a pawn, and I would be threatening a whole lot of attacking stuff. Then my next plan would be to play d5, close down the position, play one rook up to the 6th rank, rook h6 if I can manage, and then win. But I thought this would be a great position, but then I figured I shouldn't calculate matters, and after knight h4 I saw this attack. I saw about 5 moves in advance, and I saw that I could win either your bishop or your rook, worst case scenario, and then I just decided to go for that. I saw that I was going to be 2 or 3 pawns up, and I figured it was enough. So I played knight takes e4. And now you took d takes e4. Obviously there are 3 ways to capture. Did you consider the 2 other captures?
Yeah, so rook takes a4, knight takes, bishop. I was also looking at every time, but bishop takes f7 check, just in case there's any anything. But yeah, so yeah, it's again it's difficult to know which to do, to be honest. But I ended up going to d takes because it exposed your d6 pawn.
I was looking at knight takes as the best option, and then I was looking at knight takes, queen takes. The problem is that you cannot play g3 because of knight h3 check. And I wasn't really sure what you should be doing now. But for some reason, I either wanted to take with the knight on d6, or I wanted to play the move queen f3, just trying to protect everything. But perhaps d takes e4 was the best move, I'm not sure. But I calculated all 3, and I just couldn't see any way out for you. So after d takes knight, queen takes h4. Here, did you calculate anything else but queen takes d6? Because I thought queen d6 was losing.
No, seems to be just...
I was looking at knight f5 immediately, but that also seems like it should be a bad move. And I don't see a way out. I really don't. But queen takes d6 might be the best practical decision.
Because I'd already planned for that whenever I took with the d pawn. That was why I took with it. So whenever I took with it, I just went with the queen move. So.
Okay, obviously the problem with queen takes d6 is bishop takes h3, which I saw before I played knight takes e4, and now you cannot take the bishop because queen h3 is checkmate. And yeah, you need to leave the piece alone. And I was looking at queen takes e5 as the best move. Did you consider that?
Yeah, actually, I did actually have it written down here. Yeah.
So after queen e5, this is the only move I had trouble with, and I was going to play knight g2, and then, well, I have a couple of pawns, and I mean, the position should be fine. I have a tempo on the rook. But I didn't like sticking my knight into g2, because in many positions you could probably attack my bishop, and I'm not sure. But I probably had other options as well. I'm not sure. What do you think black should play here? Perhaps I can just play bishop e6 and get rid of your bishop, be a safe pawn. No, I'm actually not a pawn up anymore. I'm not sure. But anyway, after... Yeah, I think queen e5 was still the most resilient move because you are attacking my knight and I don't really have that much room to maneuver, so I have to move
destroying so many pieces, so like if bishop g2, and then if your queen comes up the board, I just thought there was too many pieces.
I don't think I can take with the bishop because I don't really have a check because of your g3 knight. Yeah, I didn't like bishop g2. I would have definitely taken with the knight, but I still didn't see a way out of this. After queen e5, I was worried about this move, but after bishop takes h3, you played knight f5, which that's the main variation I had calculated. So bishop takes f5 is what I saw as a practical solution. And then after e takes f5, which you probably have to take, queen g5.
There was also a g3 fork. There, if I push the pawn to attack the queen and the knight.
Here?
Yeah.
I don't think the fork works because of knight h3.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I can defend this. I mean, obviously you're going to win my bishop and still get the piece back, but for some reason the engine hates, after ef5, the engine hates my move queen g5. I don't know why. I don't really know what the problem is with this move. So obviously if you play rook g3, I'm going to play knight e2 check, win the rook. And you have to defend checkmate. So what does the engine hate so much? I'm going to have to turn it on for this move. I really don't know what the best move here should be. So what's the best move? Can you see what the engine is saying? Because I can't see a move.
It's saying g3 for me.
Yeah, well, that's what you played. I figured that was winning. Okay, so g3. Knight h3 check. And now you played king g2, and that's actually the variation which I saw. That this should be... Oh, perhaps you should have played rook f3. Maybe white is better here? White is winning here. What?
Yeah, I actually, rook f3 was one of the moves I considered here. Rook f3, rook h1, rook f1, and rook takes e5.
It says, I think it says queen e5. I think queen e5 should be the best move. But I don't understand that. Okay, so I'm going to turn on the engine. I figured this was completely over and that I was just winning. How can this be winning for white? Because
queen takes e5, I was just considering rook takes e5.
I looked at both and I figured queen takes f2 and then I can just take on b2 and win the bishop, or but maybe you then have bishop takes f7, which perhaps you should have played anyway. I don't understand this. So it says queen e5. And then queen takes f2. King takes h3. Oh, because you have c4. You have c4 after queen takes e5. And you are defending everything. So c4, rook defends the bishop, queen defends the rook. Oh, I missed that. Okay, so yeah, that's what I missed, and that's why it doesn't work. So c4 is the only move to save both pieces, and then I just have 3 pawns for the piece, and I'm worse. Yeah, but after rook takes e5, it still says equal. How is that possible? Queen takes f2. King takes h3. Queen takes b2 is a blunder. Why? I don't understand this. Perhaps bishop... Do you understand this position?
No.
I really have to say I have no idea why this should be better for white. You played rook a to e1 here. Oh, you have queen d1. Oh my god. Yeah, okay. I was apparently blind and my whole combination didn't work because in both cases you can defend either with c4 or here with queen d1. Okay, so yeah, you just let the bishop go, and you actually didn't think for a long while. You only thought for like 1 minute, and then after queen d1, I assume I have to take here, and now I have four pawns for the piece, but it should still be better for you. Yeah, okay, and you played rook e1, which just hangs the bishop. And from here on, it's a lost game. But I have to say, I had no idea. I was blundering with my plan. Okay, so what did you think here?
Yeah, I was a little bit annoyed with some of my playing, so I actually stopped recording my potential moves at this point.
Okay.
But I thought I was going for some sort of back rank potential thing at this point. But yeah, I pretty much given up because you're ahead in pawns, and yeah, you're already massively winning. So I was just going for some back rank type thing at this point.
You had one back rank trick. You played the move queen d7, which I thought was weird, and then when I took on a3, and you took queen takes b7, I actually wasn't thinking anymore. At this point, I thought I was just winning and wasn't really concentrated. But can you see a win for white if I take on c3?
Yeah, because at this point I was debating whether or not to take queen takes rook a8.
Yeah, but if I take on c3, then queen takes a8 is just winning.
Yeah, but in that current position, you can move back to f8 and everything's fine.
Yeah, I have to keep the queen on the diagonal, so I played queen d6, defending c6, and yeah, just.
I think I almost resigned at this point, but then I decided just to play on just for the fun of it.
Yeah, I mean, this is just 3 pawns up and hard to play. You offered the queen exchange, which I didn't like, but. And now after a5, it's resignable.
Yeah.
So yeah. And unbelievably, my combination was just horrible. Okay, so knight h4. Let's go back to that position. Knight h4. So knight takes c4 was correct. D takes c4 was correct. Queen takes h4 was correct. And then queen d6 is apparently the best move. Bishop takes h3. And yeah, knight f5 was the mistake. Queen e5 was better. And then I missed both defenses, c4 to c4 to queen takes and queen d1 to rook takes, which was just bad. So yeah, what do you think about the game as a whole?
Instructive.
Okay, what do you think you should do better next time?
Yeah, just tactics, like you said, but also, like you said from the beginning, a number of times during the game that bishop on b3 just felt really awkward. Yeah, and at even one point I wanted to push the b pawn, but yeah, it was a good game. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think you should work on the Italian some more, because a3 is, I would say, a theoretical mistake, and then not having your bishop on c2 and not playing d4 is completely out of the opening. It's not in the nature of the opening. And I think if you had known those two plans, it would have been a different game. Because it's really hard for black to play these positions, which is why I played the Italian with white.
I had previously played the Greco variation, or the Greco gambit, but just trying to be more solid. And we talked about the drawing line in that variation. Yeah. So yeah, trying this instead. But yeah, plenty to work on.
Yeah, it's a hard variation, but the plans are easy to learn. Yeah. Okay, thanks very much for the game and for the analysis. And do you have anything more to add?
No, it was just a lot of fun. So thanks for the game.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. Thanks everybody for watching. Hope you like the game. Hope you like the analysis, and stay tuned for more chess. Bye bye.
Thanks. Bye.